Hi everyone, and welcome to week 13 of our Tula Pink Butterfly 2nd edition sew along, hosted by Pat Sloan at her website ilovetomakequilts.com. This week we tackle the small pie blocks, so let's take a look at curved piecing. As always, we start with the location of this week's blocks, and they are all in the lower section of our wings, and we need to make 8 this week. The colours that we need to use this week, going from left to right in the picture, is agave from the pom-poms, spring from the wildflowers, chameleon from the hexie, celestial, the dark blue solid, iris, the light blue solid, sapphire, the dark blue mineral, lupin from the pom-poms, deep sea from the hexie, and delphinium from our wildflowers. Let's get started. As you can see here, I have most of my pieces cut out to make all 8 blocks for this week, but I have left a couple to show you how I use the templates, and we'll look at first different ways. So the templates are on pages 26 and 27 of your pattern books, and I have a photocopy here just on standard paper. I then chose to do mine on cardstock, so I have a 200 GSM paper. Most normal paper is around 80. So this is a thick card-like paper that I can put through my printer, and this is how I do my templates. You can also use template plastic. I have never used this in the past. I did buy it, and this package remains unopened. The other way people make their templates is quite often with freezer paper. I have some freezer paper here, but as I said, I chose to go with my cardstock paper instead. So with that, I've got my templates that we need for this week, which are H and J. And what I did was I looked at what size this was as a square. And so for H, it's around 3.5 inches. So I cut a square that was 3 5/8, and for G it was around 3 inches, so I cut a square that was 3 1/8. That way I can place my template in the corner of my square, and I know that those two sides are solid, and then I simply trace around the curved side of each template. For the H template, we also need to do those two little sides because I've made the fabric a little bit bigger. So what I'm doing here now is making the final pieces that I need for my 8 blocks, and as I said, I'm just going to trace around the curve. You can do this with a pencil, a friction pen, a chalk liner. I'm just showing you here. This has a little pinwheel in it, and it leaves just a few little dots of chalk on there. Obviously yellow wouldn't be the right color for this fabric, but I'm going to go with my articulated pencil because that is my preference. So we just simply trace around the shapes and then cut them out with some very sharp, I've got my embroidery / applique scissors there. So now we have 2 sets of pieces. One is concave and one is convex, and we need to fit them in. And when you lay it out like this, it doesn't look like they're going to go together, but they do. What we need to do is first find the center of both of our pieces, and in this, well, what I do here is I just fold it in half, as you can see, and make a little finger press mark. I do, in the first instance, actually divide this into 4 sections, but I don't actually use those other center markings. If it was a much larger curve, these extra markings just help to actually place things. And I like to think of these like the little notches or the stars that are on paper patterns for clothing construction. So once we have our central point worked out, we just line those 2 pieces up, and it looks silly, but it's meant to, and we place a pin to hold that center point securely. Now these flower head pins do work, but they are a little bit long for when we're trying to manipulate the curve, so if you have shorter pins such as applique pins, they will be great. Once you've got your center identified and secured, we then need to match up one of these edges. And as you can see here, I was very fumbly, but you do get it in the end, and place a pin to hold that securely. Following this, we then need to spread the fabric around the curve. Now you are fitting two different shaped curves together, so you will get little pleats in your corner piece, and they are meant to be there. But what you need to try and do is ensure that they are far enough away from your 1/4 inch seam allowance. So you just do your best to ease all of this in and use as many pins as possible. I obviously changed my mind and decided to fix up my other side. So all I'm doing there is just matching up my other end of the curve to the pieces. And as these are smaller curves, they are a little bit more difficult to finagle, but patience is your friend in this instance. As I said, we then need to ease our differences together, and you can use as many or as little pins as you like to hold this before taking it to the sewing machine. So as you can see, it does require a little bit of manipulation to get these two curves to line up, and you'll notice that our concave piece, which is our corner piece, is a little bit pleated and looks like it's got some tucks and things in it. But once we take this to the machine, if we slow sew enough, we will notice that it is far enough away from our 1/4 inch that we have to be careful and sew slowly as we go around this curve to make sure that we don't sew any of those pleats and tucks in. I wish I had had a better camera angle for the actual sewing, but it is what it is. Now, you will notice as I go around here as well that I don't pull all of my pins out, but I do make sure that they are nowhere near the needle, and this is where coming slow also comes into play. It looks like it's not going to work, but trust me and trust in the process. Go as slow as you need, moving your fabric around, making sure you stop with your needle down when you do stop, so that you can move the fabric without actually moving it away from your 1/4 inch. Taking it nice and slow, we work our way around the curve, manipulating the fabric as we need, pulling those tucks out of the way to make sure that we don't sew any of them into our seam. So as you can see, if you take it slow and gentle and manipulate the fabric as needed, lift up your presser foot, making sure the needle's down, and move everything around, you can quite successfully sew this curve. And now we just need to press it. Now for our pressing instructions on these, I am going to press the two different colors that we're doing in two different directions. But as a first step, I am just going to clip around this curve, and that allows for one of the pieces of fabric to actually spread out a lot more evenly when we do press it in either direction. Normally on a curve that faces out, you would just clip in, and for a curve that faces in, you would actually take little triangles of fabric out. We're not going to go to that level here. We're just going to simply clip and then press as best we can, in this instance, away from the center. When I do the dark blue ones or the celestial fabric, I will press in towards the center, and that will allow us to nest our seams when we join all of these together. I'm going to go through this process one more time for you, but I will do it in 2 times the speed, just so you're not so bored watching me doing what I'm doing. If that went by a little too fast for you, you can actually change the playback speed of the video here on YouTube by simply clicking the little cogwheel and changing the playback speed. But now that I have this second one sewn, I deliberately chose to do the celestial one so that I can just show you I am still going to clip this as I did the other one, but I'm going to press this one in towards the center. I am then going to join these 2 pieces together before making the other half of this pie block, wheel block, whichever one it is, and then constructing the entire 4 patch together. With these 2 pieces now pressed in the opposite direction, we can nest our seam here when we go to sew these 2 pieces together to create the top half of our 4 patch. For all seams going forward from this point, we do want to press them open, and once I start to do this, I notice that my 2 points with my circles aren't lined up quite as much as I'd like. So I am just going to unstitch that top little bit and finagle that into position and make sure that my circle has a continuous line. Once we've done this, I will make the other 2 halves of this and finally sew all the 4 patch together. And our block for this week will be done. Well, the first of 8 anyway. With the 2 halves of our final block done, I am once again going to just press this one open, and when we need to line this one up, just be careful to match that center seam, as it will be very noticeable if it is off even just a little bit. Don't stress too much, however. At the end of the day, if you can't see it galloping past on a horse at 100 miles an hour, then it's fine. And now to finish this one off and control the bulk, we will just press this last seam open also. Thanks for joining me again this week, folks. If you haven't done so already, like my video, share it with a friend, or subscribe if you haven't already done so. Most important, tickle that little bell icon and you won't miss a thing. Bye for now, and I'll see you all again next week.